Well, they are 3 for 4 on first second differences. Welcome to The Last of Us Season 1, Episode 4, Spot the Difference. Right off the bat, we have one. The only one we haven't really had one on was last episode, Episode 3. Make sure to check them all out. You don't have to watch them in order, but, you know, you should watch them all. In Episode 3, we started with Joel at the water's edge in a forest outside of Billstown. So not completely non-canon. It, you know, could have happened in canon. I won't call it like a difference. So I'm saying 3 of 4 because the first two had time jumps backwards. What are these called? Why is my brain doing those? Had flashbacks to basically the outbreak and before the outbreak and information on it. And we're getting a lot more outbreak information in general and lore for how the fungus works, which is a pretty cool change. But this change in the first second right here, make sure you grab your coffee, your tea. I have coffee today because Ellie took a gun from Bill's, and that was not a thing in the game. In the game, eventually, she, I think, just grabs one right before she kills a man. She picked it up. Come here with me. Come. So, Financial District is when she gets the gun. Is it right before? It is right before. Yep. See, because he's showing her the rifle. I don't know if we have this. I can't remember if they put this in. So we'll find out in this episode, to be honest. Right now, we're like 2 hours into the game, actually. You can tell that there's a huge difference between where we are in the game and where we are in the show. Here we are. Okay, so this is where she's going to get the gun. And unfortunately, I can't do much sound in the game because I was talking over it in this VOD. Nonetheless, here we go. So he's reaching for his gun. This is where Ellie gets her gun. Right here. Okay. And she grabs it, gets this guy. So that's her first human kill. What a face. And so she picked up that gun. They do more foreshadowing in the show about the gun. In the game, she's like, hey, I would like a weapon. But I feel like they repeat it more in the show. And then she actually takes one from Bill's house, which is interesting. She at least got to drive a little bit at Bill's house. So maybe they were trying to give her a little bit more agency. I don't really know why they made this change, except to maybe just create a little more conflict since they don't have gameplay conflict to keep you glued. I think it's an acceptable change, but I do think that this paired with some of the other stuff we've seen, like the way that she just kind of taunted a zombie before killing it, she seems like a little psychopath. Okay, so this is it's almost the same, and a lot of people would call this not a difference, okay? But we're spotting the differences, and this is one. So just listen to her line delivery here. I said line delivery about 1,000,000 times in the first episode, maybe the second as well. Bear with me because we're doing another. Are you ready?
This is your fault then.
This is your fault then. And then she goes to read puns. That's what she's doing here. No pun intended. Okay, so she's reading puns to Joel, but she makes it almost like a punishment to him. And so while puns are like a key, iconic Ellie thing throughout the entire series. She loves puns. She loves jokes. She's a silly, right? That's just part of her character. So I'm glad they included it. If they hadn't, we'd all be very upset. There are a lot of things that they missed, but they did get the puns, and I'm very happy they did. However, the framing is what makes Ellie's character different here. And in the games, she wants to share it because of her love for puns. And she got so excited when she first gets the puns. In the DLC episode, I think it's included in. However, what makes it different is the way that she said that line. One more time.
This is your fault then.
She frames it as almost a punishment. It's like everything she does is framed for other people versus in the games, she was just doing it out of innate curiosity, out of innate joy. And while there is a frame for her in the game, a very large frame, arguably her largest, that she wants to be around people, that's not what she's doing here. If anything, she's actively trying to push people away. And so I'm not crazy about this framing. That line delivery isn't necessarily like the actress's fault on this one. It's just the way that they wrote her character is once again more standoffish than, not just standoffish, but they're truly trying to make her more unlovable. And I don't really get that. It's like they're trying to make her really, really annoying. Whereas in the game, some of these were like annoying, but in a like, haha way, you know, it was like, okay, Ellie, whatever. Right? You're just like, she's a fun loving kid. It is what it is. And it does kind of bring a little joy to, you know, Joel's black heart. But in this, it's more like everybody's just angry and annoyed and annoying. And I don't understand why everything has to be. And I think, again, it's just to create like a little bit more tension, conflict. But Instead, it feels like they are sacrificing the nuance and the beauty of these characters in order to create that. And I think I've said that in another episode, but I told you to hold on to that in your mind. So we're seeing this consistent thread throughout, and I'm interested to see where it shifts or where they try to shift it into there being a healthy sort of relationship, or at least a loving relationship between Joel and Ellie, because without that, the last episode doesn't make sense. And I do actually have a video about my first reactions to the last episode. I did it like the night of. It was like my fastest video ever. I got it out right after as a reaction to it because I was very upset by the last episode. So I want to see if this Spot the Difference makes me feel that more or less. And just to continue this thought just a little bit, look at how genuinely upset Joel is, which isn't how the game works. In the game, he's just kind of a grump, but you can tell he's a grump with a heart of gold. He's that trope, right? Versus this.
I stayed up all night.
No.
This is one more fleck on the increasing tower of things that suggest these characters are putting on a fake show rather than being genuine, which is just hard to watch. So just listen to this line delivery.
And then it dawned on me.
Feel free to wait in the truck.
Okay, but just know, you can't escape Will Livingston.
See, no one talks like that unless they're like putting on a show. You know what I mean? It's just clear that they're not engaging in a way that's genuine, and that's not the way that Ellie presents. There might be real people that put on a show more than others, but that's not our Ellie from the game at all whatsoever. She does some of that with her childlike wonder, but this Ellie in particular does that. And does it feed into some of the characterization about her really wanting human connection? Yes. But is it our Ellie? No. For anyone wondering, they're on the journey now, basically in between Billstown and the Hunters. So we should get to the Hunters pretty soon. I actually thought this episode was going to open with the Hunters. Maybe that's next episode. So let's see where this goes. I'm blanking on how this episode goes, to be honest. Okay, so everything through now on the road trip has been almost word for word the cutscene. They did a really good job with that scene, as much as, again, not my Joel, not my Ellie. Just going to keep repeating that because it upsets me. The line delivery is not what I want. But nonetheless, it was almost word for word the exact same scene. They had the magazine, they had the song. However, here's the difference that I wanted to point out. Arby's, did they sponsor this show? They mentioned Arby's in the Bill episode too, and now they're mentioning Arby's again. Is this like a Last of Us sponsor? I feel like I might need to get Arby's for my playthrough tomorrow because I'm starting a Last of Us 2 Platinum playthrough. So maybe I need to get some Arby's. Jeez. Does anyone know the background for this? Why is there so much Arby's? That was never in the game. Okay, this is the second time that they've done realistic sleep time that they wouldn't have, obviously, in the game. It wouldn't make sense. It's a good time filler. I mean, I guess technically, canon-wise, this could have happened and we didn't realize. How far are we from... They go from what, basically Boston to Pittsburgh? Nah, it's like 9 hours. They could have done that in a day. They could have done that without sleeping, but they might have needed some rest. I don't know. You would think they would have rested in Billstown in this version. They definitely did it in the game version, but in this version it would have made sense. So I don't know, 9 hours seems like they could have just gone for it. I guess they did have to stop every hour like he said, but so maybe that was like to try to convince you that this is plausible. Nonetheless, don't hate it. It is realistic for them to need to stop here and there. And this is where they build in characterization since they don't have as many encounters. However, it would, what do you think? Would you rather, I would think I would rather have more zombies than see him cook, but maybe I'm just a gamer. I don't know. So, like all good zombie stories, what is the theme for many of them? That humans are worse than the zombies, more dangerous than the zombies. And Last of Us plays into that trope as well in both the game and the show. So I'm not mad about the framing here. I think it's good, and I think it's good that they talk about it. However, this shows a little bit of a lore difference that I find interesting. And I think it's to basically show how and why they let their guard down. I mentioned in the last episode where he goes, oh, it's safe in here. The only thing bad is you, basically, when she goes, can I like walk around, whatever? Is it safe? So I think that's to maybe try to, again, define these lines for the audience better. I think they're trying to make sure that the audience just isn't always on edge, but they're kind of like decreasing the amount of conflict they have for the audience by doing that. And so I'm not really sure why they continue to harp on this point of, oh, there are areas that are safe because these specific zombies in the show, instead of having the spores and everything else, they're more of like congregating zombies. And we've seen congregating zombies, obviously, in the game. Like, there's a truth to that, and there's a truth to where and how they congregate. And we see more of that lore than we're told, and we're told more in the show. And I actually really think that's interesting because it is coming from canon to some degree. But just listen to this line for a second, because it is different than the way that we operate in the game. Because again, we don't stop to rest, really, right? Everything is kind of an encounter unless you're walking around houses. And even then, if it's your first playthrough, you're always kind of on edge until you understand the pattern of, oh, this seems like a safe area. And there's really no safe area a lot of times.
No, fungus isn't that smart. This is too remote for infected anyway.
This is too remote for infected anyway. I don't feel like we had that in the game. And it begs the question of what lore are we missing in the game to kind of connect that, if it really is canon for the game as well, or is this just for the show? And if so, why? Because again, it doesn't really pan out to anything specific. And I'm wondering if maybe they're building up to something in season 2, because again, I've only seen the first episode of season 2. It feels like they're spending a lot of time building this lore. And maybe it's something that's supposed to add to our experience as the gamers and give us more information that we didn't get there. I don't know. If anyone has thoughts, feel free to share them. I just realized something that's been bothering me about Joel because, as you know, I keep saying, not my Joel. And I've said how he just doesn't have Joel's essence, and I figured out one of the big differences that's causing that. Almost all of Pedro's line deliveries, and I need to come up with a new word because y'all are probably tired of hearing me say line deliveries, but nearly every time that show Joel speaks, it's monotone. And I don't know what that's about. I don't know if it's to show like his depression. Not that a monotone voice necessarily always equates with depression. I'm not a psychologist, but I just don't understand what they're going for here with him having almost no emotion all the time other than anger. Because while he is broody and mysterious and clearly like traumatized and he has all of this nuance, that nuance isn't bleeding out into his words and his tone the way that it does in the game, because every single thing that he says is monotone. Listen real quick.
No one's gonna find us.
And just a few seconds before that,
I'll go to sleep.
Every single line.
Because he was outstanding in his field.
Why is every single thing that he says, why does it all sound exactly the same? Is he even trying to act? What is going on? Everybody's like, oh, Pedro's such a good actor. What is this? Anybody could do that. He's just saying the same tone over and over. What's going on? Listen, I'm getting passionate now. And if you don't believe me and you're like, oh, but the game Joel did that too, here's proof that that's not the case. This is in Financial District right around the same time that this scene would have taken place with them in the woods.
Right now, I'm gonna jump down there and I'm gonna clear us a path.
What about me?
You stay here.
This is so stupid. We'd have more of a fucking chance if you let me help.
I am. You seem to know your way around a gun. You reckon you can handle that?
Even though he has that southern drawl and he has a little bit of that gravelly sort of monotone, he still has nuance in every single word. The way that Troy voices Joel, there is a poetry to the way that he speaks almost. You can hear the tonal changes as he's saying sentences that mean and have inflection for different emotions versus the monotone delivery that Pedro gives in the show. So, and this is when he's kind of being a little bit quiet too. Let me see if there's a little bit of another example.
I'm all right. Are you okay?
So that's how he shouts. Just, you hear the nuance, okay? I don't understand what's going on here. Huge delivery difference. And now you're not going to be able to unhear it, I'm telling you. Just a little bit more monotone to hammer it home. Here you go.
Theirs was a lot fresher than what Bill taped up, but yeah, this is what they sold.
Is it just because he doesn't have a low register and he's trying to pretend to? Because I feel like he has a higher voice. I could be making that up. I don't know what this is. I don't know why it's like he's not even trying to act. But it's just
Probably close to another city out there. Ain't too many of them in Wyoming.
I feel like I'm just zoning out trying to listen to him. And you can say, okay, and so if I go back to what I said in episode 2 at the end, where I'm trying to appreciate the art for what it is and not what I want it to be and not even what it is in the game, what is this trying to convey if he doesn't have any emotion in his voice ever. Oh, that he's just completely dissociated and depressed. How does that make the story better than having a nuanced character? Because again, they're making him very one note. Literally, his voice is one note. Super quick difference. They have stretched out this entire section of the game so much that the song wasn't playing when they crashed the truck, and it made me sad. That's all. Okay, so Chekhov's gun just came out and Ellie shot this guy, but she didn't kill him, and it takes away from her first kill. The scenario here doesn't have the same effect. He's like begging for his life, which I think is supposed to compensate for that, to make her feel a little bit guiltier, but she's not even the one who ultimately kills him. Joel is. And oddly enough, I don't know what they were doing in this scene, but he like puts away her gun after taking it from her and then takes out his own gun, but then he stabs him with the guy's knife. So I'm not really sure why there was so much like movement of stuff that didn't really seem to matter. It was just weird details I picked up on. But I want you to see kind of the difference here because he's begging. This is her reaction to everything. Hold on. And she has that little like she doesn't say anything. And she has that psychopath look that she did when she stabbed the Zom that was stuck in the last episode. And so it's a weird, it's like I don't know what they're going for there. It's this like beady-eyed little stare that she does that feels very dissociated. I feel like dissociated is becoming a theme in this. Everybody's dissociated versus being a bit more present in the game. And not to say that that's not necessarily realistic, but it's also leading to a lot less nuance and relationship with the characters. So it's not serving the story super well, but I want to show you where this scene is in the game because there's a lot more emotion behind it. And because it's missing that, this is where I start to really see a lapse in what could have been if they had really played up the relationship between Joel and Ellie, the father-daughter relationship that we see throughout the game. Because by the last episode, we've just had these two monotone, disassociated people and just angry people not really necessarily caring about each other that much. You don't feel it the same way. At least I didn't. So here's why, because look at this difference between this scene and that scene.
I shot the hell out of that guy, huh?
Yeah, you sure did.
I feel sick.
You just hang back like I told you to.
Well, you're glad I didn't, right?
That's a very important line. Sorry, I was talking over a little bit of that, but that's a very important line. Well, you're glad I didn't, right? Like, she wants so desperately to be confirmed and accepted by other humans and have relationship with other humans. It's something that she so desperately wants, and it's repeated over and over in the series that she just doesn't want to be alone. She wants to feel human connection. And she's trying so hard to like earn that from him, and you don't feel that in the show at all, right? There's so much emotion in this scene from both of them. Whereas here, she was just kind of staring dead-eyed at him. One more time. And she doesn't say a word, and neither really does Joel. The most that anyone says anything in the scene is the kid begging for his life.
Wait. You can have it. It's a good knife.
And some of you are going to come out and be like, well, she shows it rather than says it. So let me show you, and we'll talk about it. So she did show a little bit right there.
Ellie,
Instead of having the dialogue, which they might have in a second. But showing that she's a little bit freaked out is not the same as what we just saw in the game scene.
Well, you're glad I didn't, right?
Because she had so many different emotions. It was her wanting that acceptance, her trying to basically earn Joel's acceptance, her also feeling a bit traumatized by just doing that. She also seems to have a little bit of like excitement there because she'd been wanting the weapon. Here we get one note. Once again, one emotion, one note. It's like they've cookie cuttered these characters and boiled them down to just the one thing that they want to position to move forward in the story rather than telling a beautiful story about these two characters. Anyone who's ever written a story, there's some or analyzed them. You can write it for the characters, or you can write it for the plot. And if you write it for the plot, the characters are going to make decisions that don't always make sense. Like, for instance, the end of Game of Thrones, which most of us hate, is because, which both of these actors were in, by the way, but it was good. at the beginning because the characters drove the story. Everything we saw, we could kind of maybe not even necessarily relate to, but on an emotional level we could, because we saw these characters making decisions for themselves, having agency in their own lives, versus this where we have characters that are making decisions to forward the plot. And so this is very plot focused, you can tell, based on the way that these characters are written with one note rather than multiple, so that we could see them making decisions that kind of ebb and flow together and bounce off of each other. And that's why Game of Thrones is so exciting, because we see all of these different people with different emotions colliding, and you never really know what's going to happen, versus here, you know exactly what's going to happen because they don't have more than one emotion ever. It makes it very, very boring compared to what we saw in the game. Okay, so everything from here on out, I think, in the episode is pretty much something that doesn't exist in the game. They give life to the hunters. They give them a side story, a whole plot, and it carries through with what we're about to see with Sam and Henry in that section as well. And they replace basically a lot of the heavy encounters we have with characterization for them, which I actually really like. This is a really good change. I don't think that it necessarily would belong as well in the game. I think it would maybe take away from the core of the storytelling. So I think this is one of those things where it's a great use of it being a media adaptation from game to show. I think this is a great thing that you can do in a show, is expand some of these stories, especially when they're intermingling and in relation to our main characters and have an effect on our main characters. Unlike the Bill and Frank plot, which again was beautiful, but didn't really intermingle with the main story, this one does. So this is one of the best changes, I think, of the entire series that they take from game to show and expand upon. So I might not have a ton to say about most of the rest of the episode, because pretty much everything from here on out is going to be different. It's just the hunter story and a lot of their plot. There may be certain elements that bounce off of Joel and Ellie differently, and if so, I'll call those out. But other than that, this episode's going to be pretty much a wrap, I think. I might eat those words. Oh, just a little Easter egg here. This guy that's about to speak is actually the voice of Tommy in the game.
We think it was outsiders. We found a truck loaded.
He sounds just like him. Oh, man. I think he should have played Tommy in the show. Just gonna throw it out there. I think he should have. I think he could have pulled it off. What do you think? And just an FYI on who he is in the show, he's the second in command to this Hunter storyline. Also, I think most of the Hunter actors, if not all, did a really, really phenomenal job. I love, what is her name? This lady, she's great. I think the storyline and the acting is great. And even though it's super different, again, great change. This is kind of a baffling change because they have a tank, but they put the run and the basically zombie scooper on the front of a truck instead. Let me show you. See, this looks like the tank. So it's like they separated the two, and I'm unsure why. They should have combined the two like in the game. A weird change, but anyway, I'm still glad they have the run. At least they have that part of the Easter egg in the game. But the tank was a whole section of the game. Watch this. See it's there. Right here. Do you see it? This is the sniper section of the game. You pick up a sniper, you never see it again. This is the tank with run on the front. Not crazy. So this is another sit-in section. We're going to start calling it the budget section. They do a lot of these. It's fair because they have a lot of cool cinematics, but we're going to call it the budget section because they keep doing these like sitting basically in the dark talking. Pretty boring overall. But they do have the conversation that they had at a much better time in the game. You saw it already right after she shoots the guy. This was a little bit delayed and after a whole new plot point. So I think the timing of this episode is all off in terms of trying to keep the viewer interested, but that's just my personal emotions behind it. Others might see it differently. Nonetheless, I'm not going to say line delivery, but just listen to the way that she says the same exact thing that we saw in the game.
You shouldn't have had to, you know.
Well, you're glad I did, right?
Do you see how sad she said that? Once again, very one note. The emotion definitely isn't equivalent to everything that you hear. The desperation for acceptance that you hear in her voice right here.
Well, you're glad I didn't, right?
I'm glad I
And listen to Joel's reaction too. Both of them, it's so much emotion.
didn't get my head blown off by a goddamn kid.
Not me saying the line with him. Listen, It's not even close to the same. Am I insane? Let me know in the comments if I'm insane, but I'm upset. Okay, this is just, oh man, these changes are not good. Not good. Just go back to the Hunter story. Just, you know what? Tell the side stories. Forget Ellie and Joel in the series, in the show series. Forget it, you know? Forget it. This is interesting. She just said it wasn't her first time relating to hurting someone, maybe killing someone, which is not how it comes off in the game. So I don't know why this story changed. Some of them are just truly elusive as to why. It feels like we're missing an important pivotal moment for Ellie here because she didn't kill the guy. She's saying this isn't her first time doing this, and she's acting really like dissociated and sad versus all of the emotions we saw and discussed in the game. So there's almost nothing redeeming with the way that they've done it in the show. There's no advantage to it that I see at all whatsoever. The way she just got so smiley about this gun in like 0.5 seconds from crying doesn't show nuance like the way that they had multiple emotions going on at the same time. It shows 100% psychopathy, like this not having the normal, not that there's normal human emotion to traumatizing events, but it almost feels like she just manipulated him into giving her the gun with a sad story and a little bit of tear. She didn't smile until he got up and walked away and looked away. And it just, this whole thing feels manipulative to get what she wants, which is the gun, rather than like a genuine moment between the two. Psychopath behavior. It feels like she doesn't actually feel a lot of these things as much as she just wants to have what she wants to have, and she's going to do what it takes to get it. And this is not our Ellie. Just watch her facial expression here. Here is yet another rest time that doesn't exist in the game, serving essentially the purpose of conversations we'd have while we're resource gathering, encountering, mostly resource gathering and going from place to place. A cool note here is that we see some of Joel's intelligence in survival, and he lays out a bunch of glass that somebody would step on if they try to sneak up on them. I think that's a cool touch. It's one that I think would have been cool to kind of see in the game. It's also kind of an Easter egg for the way that glass gives us away, especially in the scenes like with David and another in 2, without giving you any spoilers. So it's a cool little, not that anybody lays that out purposefully, but it is cool in both of those regards. So, and it's not something that we see in the game. We have traps in 2. We don't really have any traps in this one. We can use the glass bottle to kind of do a little bit of that as well, but that's more causing sound, not causing someone to walk over it. It also almost alludes to, if we want to get real deep with what they might have connected it to, there's a portion with tripwires outside of Billstown in this area of the game. See that tripwire right there? So it kind of reminds me of that, because we can use them as traps like he's using them here. So we see that intelligence factor like in the gameplay that we can't have in the show because it's not a game. I want to say that it's equivalent to all 3 of those things in different ways. So I think that this glass thing was a very smart move on their part for the adaptation, and one that I very much enjoy. Remember how I just gave them props for writing intelligence for Joel? I forgot that they're trying to make him weak in this show. Just watch.
Joel!
He literally set the glass as a trap and still got tricked. We had a smart Joel in the game. You see in the game how we meet Henry and Sam isn't by some form of trickery. We're jumping through a window thinking we're safe, running from the tank. It's your B-Day. No. I think we should make a prediction. My vote is no. So there you go. And Ellie's going for him. So it's like Ellie being protective with her knife, Joel wrestling with this guy, which we just don't have in the show. I don't know why they insist on making Joel seem weak and incapable. All right, well, that was episode 4. I'm mad curious. If you want to see more of these episodes or anything about Assassin's Creed or some of the other series that I love, I make a lot of YouTube videos and live streams. So make sure you like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.